Hello, welcome to another episode of Bat Dan's Discussions. So on Bat Dan's Thoughts, you recently saw me talk about why I feel Netflix should make the Batfleck movie. I still feel strongly about that, but since that video, there have been some interesting developments. James Gunn has announced he is in fact doing a separate Batman from Matt Reeves' The Batman. And there's rumors that Ben Affleck is going to direct this very project. So today we're going to talk about if this is still possible. Now, before I start, I just want to clarify. I mean, aside from the Ayer cut and aside from the Emerald cut, which for those who don't know is Zack Snyder's Justice League with the Green Lantern scene that Zack Snyder filmed. Because those movies are, filmed. So even if Ben Affleck were to tragically die, he would still be in those two movies. So we're talking about mainly the Batfleck movie and Zack Snyder's Justice League 2 and 3, or whatever it could possibly turn into. And we can't do a Batman topic without the Bat Channel.
What is up, Bat Dan, my Bat brother? How you been, brother?
Pretty good. How have you been?
Good. It was a long day at work, but I was really excited for this show tonight with you, and I was just happy to rush home and jump on and talk about some DC news, especially Batman. You can never go wrong with some Batman.
Exactly. You can never go wrong with Batman. That's why I love your channel, because Batman is the best. And like me, you are a fellow Batfleck fan. So
well, I mean,
do this topic with anyone else.
Hey, I appreciate that. But, I did notice you had Super Bro Corey on your last show. If you want to keep him, I'm willing to give him to you.
Sure, I could. We could be the new world's finest, I guess.
There we go. Yeah. Hey, man, that was a cool interview with Mikey Sutton that we did. That was really a real treat. I really enjoyed that.
So, what was this interview? What was this interview with Mikey Sutton about?
Well, funny you should ask. It was about his new comic, Dreamwalker. Well, I mean, it's fairly new. It's been out for almost a year. It's crazy to think it's been out for less than a year and only 2 issues. And obviously it's been selling like crazy, but we received some huge news recently that hit Variety that Dreamwalker
is going to be a live action series on a streaming service to be named.
Yes. I'm so excited. It's so crazy, right? So surreal. I'm so happy for Mikey.
Same here. He really deserves this. And the fact that he got this after 1 issue. It was 1 issue, right? That's when he got the offer?
Yeah, he got the announcement as we discussed on our interview that we did. And I believe you did one with him as well. It was just one of those scenes that like a guy was like paying attention and noticed his comic, noticed the artwork that Noel Land Flores was doing for Mikey Sutton with Dreamwalker, and couldn't wait to read it, and read it. And just like that was interested in turning it into something live action, which is phenomenal. And just kind of crazy how fast all this has taken place. And it's been fun to watch Mikey Sutton on this journey that he's on. And kudos to him and Noel and Kate Valdez in this huge achievement, this historic moment in their lives. It's incredible.
It really is. And I mean, the fact that they're including us, for those of you who don't know, Mikey Sutton is Trey and myself. We are going to be in this comic book. We sent pictures of ourselves for our likeness. So we are actually going to be adapted characters in this comic book. And now actors are going to be playing us in a live action series, or some version of us anyways. This is honestly one of the best things that's ever happened to me, to be quite honest. What about you, Trey?
It's insane. I think when you think about it, I mean, it's kind of like you never imagine it happening. Like you create a YouTube channel, you're hoping some people listen, but really you just do it because you're having fun talking about the things you love, and you have no idea that these types of opportunities can come to you. or even, come to your friends like Sil Abdul, Zod, Skiiwalker the Jedi, like all these cool cats, a part of the arc with, the cool table. And it's just crazy. I never would have thought it was possible.
Oh, same here. I mean, just the fact being in a comic, I never thought was possible, but the fact that this is going to be adapted into live action, like I was so thrilled when I heard the news. And it's just, so for those who haven't yet, I put the link in the chat and the comment section. Second Skin's Comics, or Second Skin Comics. Go buy Dreamwalker if it's not sold out already. Issue 3.
Good luck in finding it.
Oh yeah, it's hopefully, fingers crossed, that you can get it, because it's just really good. Like even if we were not in it, it's really good. I love the story. I love the dark. Basically, character named Kat, who will be played by Kate Valadez, goes into people's dreams and takes objects from those dreams to fight supernatural creatures. Long and short of it.
Yeah, it really is. Like, as I said in our show with Mikey's son, I'd be the first person to tell Mikey or even the artist Noel that I didn't like something. I always believe in being honest with even your friends. And before we even knew we were going to be a part of the comic, I had said to Mikey, I was like, I'm not really into horror comics. I mean, I like, DC, Batman, kind of the gritty, dark stuff, but like horror, like gruesome, bloody comics, I don't know. We'll see how it goes. And then reading that first issue, it's absolutely incredible. Just the artwork, the storytelling, especially with the final story that's at the end of the first book, Comfort and Joy. That was such an incredible telling. And to incorporate the Filipino folklore in it, it's like, that's really cool, because I mean, as someone who doesn't really know that folklore, it's really cool to learn about it. And to kind of see this character kind of learn her powers as she's going through. Like, it's not one of those scenes where, like, Detective Comics 27, Batman was already doing the scene, he was kicking butt. You're seeing this character, you don't know what to expect, and it's phenomenal. It's really cool.
Exactly. It's original IP, so like anything can happen, really. We're Absolutely. Not expected. Batman is not going to die because he's too popular. We know his origin. His parents are dead. It's this, with Dreamwalker, it's something different, and it's something that we can actually be excited for, because DC has been kind of letting us down lately, to be honest. At least I feel let down. How have you felt by how DC has been handled lately?
I was really excited after the end credits of Black Adam. For once, it felt like DC was getting back on track with, and not even if, like, I know there's some people out there who weren't fans of the Snyderverse, but I felt like, if anything, with the Snyderverse, which I consider like Man of Steel, BVS, Wonder Woman, you could throw in Suicide Squad in there, even though we're waiting on the Ayer cut. And I mean, if you want to throw in Aquaman there, I know some people still debate whether that is or isn't. But nonetheless, I look at those films as like peak storytelling. That was like when DC was like really on top of it. There was this connected universe going on that was really, building into this bigger thing. And if they would have continued on with Zack Snyder's Justice League, like, when you think about it, like, and I know we don't like to compare, but like Zack Snyder's Justice League versus the first Avengers film. No offense to Marvel fans, because I will say the first Avengers film was a very cool moment for Marvel fans. Absolutely, it was a cool moment. But I thought Zack Snyder's Justice League was a better film and a better story. And it would have been interesting to see how that would have broken down into a theatrical version, rather than getting the 4-hour cut. I mean, I'll always prefer a director's cut over anything.
Same here.
To see it continue would have been, if they would have just stuck with a plan, I feel like good things would have happened to DC. And when you were hearing with Black Adam that Henry Cavill was coming back, there was so much in question with him just coming back as Superman, a beloved Superman without question, right? And then you heard Ben Affleck filmed extra scenes for Aquaman 2, and The Flash, had changed into like continuing the Snyderverse, or at least what was at that moment the connected DC universe. And it was just like an exciting time. You couldn't wait to see these films. And then you had James Gunn and Peter Safran come in and say, nope, we're doing completely our own thing. Basically all the films in 2023 doesn't matter other than The Flash, because it's gonna destroy everything. Well, it's not gonna destroy, it's going to
opening up the multiverse is what they say.
Open up the multiverse so they can follow their new DCU. And while there's things that are intriguing about the DCU, I feel like DC fans have lost trust in Warner Brothers and Warner Brothers Discovery. They've lost trust in what anyone has to offer really at this point, which is like, when you think about it, Dwayne Johnson was offering something really awesome. He was offering a epic battle that we were all asking for when the first Shazam film came out with Superman Black Adam, and people were so people were so confused with Henry Cavill even being there that people couldn't even really enjoy it. You had DC fans saying, well, is he this Superman? Is he that Superman? Is he completely dishonoring this Superman? It was just like, people couldn't even just be there and be like, oh my God, finally Superman is back and he's at the forefront, but in terms of James Gunn's DCU Chapter 1, Gods and Monsters, there's hits and misses. I think what Super Bro Corey said on our show in our reaction to James Gunn's Chapter 1, and I agree with this, and this is a great way to put it. A lot of it doesn't seem Phase 1 worthy.
I agree 100%. I mean, other than Superman and Batman, a lot of it really isn't like people. When I did my little rant video about James Gunn, someone tried to counter, well, James Gunn is so good with obscure characters, give him a chance. I'm like, I don't care about obscure characters right now. Before I can get excited for the Booster Golds, for the Authorities, these whatever DC equivalent there is of Guardians of the Galaxy obscurity, I need to see that the Trinity is taken care of, that the core Justice League is taken care of. In that universe, that's what I need to see. And my thing is, how can I get invested in a new universe when they haven't even finished the old one? Like, how do I know they're going to finish this universe? And they already told the fans they were going this. I mean, they announced Henry Cavill was back. They were setting things up, and they got us excited. And then they did a 180. It's like that was the last thing the brand needed, and it's hard to get excited for DC, and it's hard to support a company that doesn't treat its fans right. Even if some of the stuff on the slate, I'm not going to lie, wasn't bad. Some of it wasn't Phase 1 worthy, but there, I think how James Gunn is doing the Batman, the DCU Batman, in my opinion, he's doing the best thing he could do given the circumstance he's in. And what do you think?
With Batman Brave and the Bold and bringing in Damian Wayne, the first time I heard him talk about it, I was kind of upset by the news, because to me, it was like, okay, but he had talked about for so long wanting to do a younger cast with everyone. Now he could have been just referring to Superman. I'm willing to, agree to that thought process, but like, if Damian, here's how I look at it. This is the best way to explain. When Zack Snyder started the universe, I look at fairness and, how are people being treated? Are people approaching this the same way they did before? And when Zack Snyder did Man of Steel, it was an origin story, and it was supposed to lead into the next Man of Steel 2. But the studio had rushed and said, no, we need to catch up to Marvel here. Let's start throwing in to get ready for our team up film. Let's get Batman into this story. And while personally, like, Ben Affleck's Batman is my favorite depiction of the character, because I love the Frank Miller Dark Knight Returns comics. It's my favorite comics of all time. But I remember a lot of people saying, well, why are you doing an older Batman? Like, you're rushing this. You're getting into this when you've missed. Here's a Batman that's been Batman for 20 years. What happened within this 20 years that we didn't see? And so many people had like beat up and criticized Zack for that decision to make him an older Batman. And yet here we go. Like, there's no way they're going to make this Batman young, because you already have Robert Pattinson's Batman, who's young and still kind of figuring it out as Batman. And it would be really weird to have a young Batman with probably a 13-year-old kid. He's probably not going to be 8 and 10 like he is in the comics, starting out. But to have a son and him only being like 30 years old, that doesn't make sense. That's too young. So there's elements I like about it. I've always wanted to see Damian Wayne. I'm just not sure if this is the right first Batman film. Me personally, I think that we need to see this Batman can kind of stand alone. He doesn't need any supporting cast other than, the typical people like James Gordon and, Alfred and stuff like that. And maybe introduce someone of the Bat family like Dick Grayson's Robin, hell, even Jason Todd at some point. Like, I'd be okay with that. We'll have to see, is basically what I'm saying. Like, we'll have to see how he handles it. I don't quite know if I like the focus being on Damian Wayne, because once again, you're trying to get people to be behind this Batman, to really like this character. And if you're focusing on where Batman is not the focus of this DCU film, I don't see how you can get people interested to care more about the character to show up. Now, people will always show up for Batman, but we'll see.
I agree. I think here's kind of the position James Gunn was in, is that he had to find some way to make this Batman different than Robert Pattinson's Batman. So James Gunn was backed into a corner a little bit. I think one thing he should have done was use Jason Todd instead of Damian Wayne. And the reason I say that is the DC animated universe. What a lot of people don't realize is Batman in that universe would have been Batman for around that same time as Clark Kent was Superman, because in the New Adventures of Batman, this was when Clark was becoming Superman. Batman had gotten his second run. Now, technically it was Tim Drake, that was the name he used, but he had Jason Todd's origin. He was basically Jason Todd in every way but name. So it would have been... So having a slightly older Batman is okay, and I think that would have been less of an age difference between Batman and Superman. So that's kind of my thing, is that I think he should have used Jason Todd, but still focusing on the Bat family to kind of separate himself from Robert Pattinson.
Yeah, it's just like you said, he had to figure out a way to be different from Robert Pattinson. And this is like one thing where I find it like very interesting of how like the general audience is going to figure it out. Because like us DCU fans, or DC fans, I should say, we're in the news, right? Like we're focusing, we're like paying attention, listening to what we hear. So we know all the inside news about who's playing Batman, why, the story, some Easter eggs that we could potentially see. We know what it means. For the general audience, they're going to show up just like they did for some. I literally sat in the theater watching the Batman opening weekend and heard a couple of people around me saying like, "Where's Ben Affleck?" And it was like, did you even watch the trailer? And now, granted, not every general audience member is that clueless, but like there's going to be some people who are going to go to a Batman film and be like, Robert Pattinson, oh, here's the next sequel of Robert Pattinson. Wait, that's not Robert Pattinson. People are going to be confused, and it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out in the box office, especially when they start comparing the numbers to each other. Okay, Robert Pattinson brings in $768 million this film, and this movie brought in $850 million. So who's the better, more successful Batman? You're going to have that conversation. You have to see how are both actors and both like showrunners of those, Matt Reeves and whoever they get to direct the Batman Brave and the Bold, how they're going to be able to handle that type of comparison.
Exactly. And this is why I said another reason why James Gunn should have finished the Snyderverse before rebooting was because that would have given Robert Pattinson and Matt Reeves time to finish their story as well So then both Ben Affleck and Robert Pattinson would have been done. So James Gunn could have completely started fresh without having any other Batman going on at that same time.
Yeah. I think if anything, what it presents is clearly when James Gunn said, like, no, everything we do is going to be connected. And for Matt Reeves to still be able to have his Elseworld universe and still, the studio willing to do theatrical releases of two different Batmen, I think it presents a very interesting situation that, like, where James Gunn said, no, we're going to be very connected. Everything that we do is connected. And yet here we have two separate storylines, which allows for the opportunity of other streaming services having DC content that might have Batman in it. Wink, wink.
Yeah. Like Netflix. One thing, Skiiwalker Tha Jedi YouTuber came up with this great hashtag. Celsius jail to Netflix. Sell Snyderverse to Netflix. Which is basically to allow the Snyderverse to finish on Netflix. Finish that story out properly on Netflix as an Elseworlds. So at least the Snyderverse fans can get proper closure. And I love this campaign. I love it because it just gets, both Trey and I think, and I'll let you speak on this as well, Trey, is that we don't need the Snyderverse to continue forever. Just a proper conclusion to the story that we all love. What do you think of this whole Celsius jail the Netflix campaign?
First off, like you said, kudos to Skiiwalker Tha Jedi and Liana the New Geeks and Sammy Snyder Queen, the Good Austin, and El Necron for really coming up with this idea and pushing it. It's absolutely brilliant. I think it's absolutely possible. And I think the important thing to know is the reason why a lot of people have been brought up, well, why not Amazon? Why not, these other streaming services? Why does it have to be Netflix? And it's just logical sense right now. And that means it's Zack Snyder's home. It's Stone Quarry's home right now. And he's coming up to a contract year. So this could be very well used as a negotiation for Netflix to keep Zack Snyder and Stone Quarry Productions with him at Netflix, because they're coming out with Rebel Moon. They have an Army of the Dead universe going on. And they also have that Twilight of the Gods animated theme that's going to happen. So it's a good home for Zack, and we know they treat him well. And they know they really trust Zack. I mean, hence why Army of the Dead, the first film, didn't even come out, and they were like, cool, you get a spin-off film, you get a spin-off animated series, and potentially sequels behind that. And what else do you want? Okay, we'll do this animated show. Okay, what else you want? You got a Star Wars story? Cool, tell us about it. You know what? We're going to give you 2 films. That's insane amount of trust to have in Zack, but he delivers, right? His fans deliver. As when Army of the Dead, when it first released, it was considered, I think, 9th place as one of the top 10 releases for Netflix, for a brand new film. And it was the #1 film at the time. And I think it still is for theatrical releases for Netflix. Now, who knows what would have happened if it would have had like a full 2 weekend, release. It could have done probably even better, especially if it had a larger distribution list of theaters that it could have ran in. But in terms of Zack Snyder's Justice League to Netflix, Snyderverse to Netflix, those are all wonderful ideas that are possible. And like you said, Batman, I hate it when they don't finish stories. It bugs the hell out of me. I'm one of those people that, like, even if I didn't like really care for a film, if they come out with a sequel, I kind of have to watch it because I have to know what happens. It just bugs the living hell out of me when I can't finish a story. So this one in particular, because I really loved what Zack was doing and the quality of storytelling that he was giving us and the quality of actors and actresses and characters and everything about it. It bugs the hell out of me to know that there was this possibility that we won't see it anymore.
Okay, so I have to ask, you said no matter how bad the movie is, if there's a sequel, you have to finish it. So if they did a Justice League sequel, Justice League 2, directed by Joss Whedon, would you have to see that movie?
In that fine print below what I just said, there's like unless the film is like trashed unbelievably, like shouldn't even be considered a movie, that film falls in that category. No, I mean, I remember I still feel guilty that I purchased Justice League on Vudu when it came out. Because at the time I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know that there was a Snyder cut out there. I didn't know there was this drama of how badly the studio treated Zach and the cast. I had no idea about that at the time. So for me, it was like, oh, this is what Zach had, and I should be happy, right? This is the Justice League. Hey, no.
Hey, I'll do you one worse than that. I was in denial about how bad Justice League was for a whole year because I argue with people that DC is better than Marvel. So I just couldn't have that Justice League film be bad. Like I heard rumors of the Snyder Cut, but I didn't realize how different it was. I thought it was just a few extra scenes. I didn't realize. So it took me rewatching the film to kind of go, oh shit, this is bad.
Funny. You know, I started to realize when I started to get an inkling, because the first time I watched it, it wasn't what I expected. It wasn't as good as I was expecting either. And visually it wasn't as stunning. And the story was a bit sillier than normal. I told myself I liked it, right? I was like, oh yeah, this go watch it, right? Go see Justice League. Cause hey, it's Ben Affleck, it's Gal Gadot, it's Henry Cavill. It's all this amazing cast. And then I took some friends to go see it. I took my parents to go see it. I think I saw Justice League 4 times. And each time I kept trying to tell myself I liked it. I think when I started to get an inkling that I was like, wait, this is actually a really bad film, was I think the fourth time, the final time I saw it, I brought friends who are like big MCU fans who would constantly give me shit about DC, and they watched it. And at that point I was kind of like bored with it, kind of like, I'm just watching it, trying to help the box office numbers. And then all of a sudden the film ends and they're like, dude, that was a great film. And I knew the moment MCU fans said it was great, I was like, you know what? This film's trash. No offense once again to MCU films, and Marvel has had some great films, but I knew when Marvel fans said this was a great film because it was so funny and like lighthearted, I was kind of like, this is trash.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way. MCU and DC fans, we just have different styles. The DC Zack Snyder fans, we just like the darker stories. That
we like stories that treat our characters in a serious tone, because we not only is it entertainment to us, but like we want to be inspired when we leave the theater. We want to actually like have a connection. And I feel like with actually putting these characters in situations that possibly you could see yourself in or you can relate to, it allows us to feel something for them, to where we feel inspired if they're able to overcome a certain obstacle. And we know, and I don't say like DC fans, are realist, but like we like that realism to it. We like thinking about our characters in a way that's like they could exist in this world. And with MCU, it's just entertaining. It's family friendly, and there's nothing wrong with that. It works for them. Clearly it works for them. They meet every film is considered a box office hit in their standards. And they do it. They have the formula down better than anyone, right? Like, as I always say, most MCU films aren't masterpieces the way like the DCEU was with Zach. I feel like a lot of those films are like peak cinema. But I would say the MCU as a whole is a masterpiece, because the connection they were able to build there and the audience that they were able to capture and to keep bringing to different films, like that in itself was an incredible achievement, that Kevin Feige should absolutely be happy about. Yeah.
Well, exactly how I feel. It's like the MCU, they have a fan base. And their films make money. They have a formula, and they have a fan base that works for them. And this is what bothers me with DC and like what they're doing right now. They always trying to emulate MCU success in every way except what actually makes them successful. Mm-hmm. Listening to the fans and building towards success. And the problem is that they're not doing that. It's like MCU, They took their time to Avengers. They took their, and could you imagine, fans asked for Charlie Cox back. Could you imagine if Charlie Cox announced he was back and then they decided to recast him after that? And they never would do that. They never would have, because they know their fans are the ones they listen to.
That is an absolutely great comparison, because it would be a similar situation, right? Like where I think Daredevil was like, it wasn't considered like the greatest TV series ever, but it had its following, right? And people loved Daredevil, and I did too. I thought some of the seasons were awesome and phenomenal.
Season 1 especially.
Yeah, season 1 especially. But when he was done, you know, or people were asked like, well, can you bring him in? Can you bring him into the MCU, make him a part of the Disney universe that they got going on rather than Netflix? And if you think about it, if Charlie Cox did a cameo in Spider-Man Homecoming and then said, I'm back, guys. Oh, wait, no. Did I say Homecoming? New Way Home. Yeah. No Way Home.
No Way Home.
No Way Home. Good grief. Can you tell I'm tired? No Way Home. If he did a cameo there and then said, yes, folks, I'm back as Daredevil. Much more to come. I'm excited to be back. And then all of a sudden, 2 weeks later, they get James Gunn, and James Gunn says, haha, just kidding. No, he's not. We have a new MCU. People would be livid. Marvel fans would probably break into Disney and find James Gunn and rip him apart. You know, it wouldn't be pretty by any sense of it. And I still think what happened to Henry Cavill was incredibly bad business. And I know James Gunn doesn't want to take credit, saying I didn't fire him. In a way, he did. In a way, he didn't make him part of his plans. People were excited to have him back. There was no reason not to have Superman. And I know he says Superman Legacy isn't an origin story, but it is a young Superman. He wants to do like Smallville story. And to me, it's like, we kind of already did that. One, we already have a TV show that has Smallville, you know, but we've already, how many times have we done a young Superman? It's nothing new. So let's continue a story here that people are actually really excited about. But you know, James Gunn has different plans, and whether you're here for it or not, you know, it's happening, you know?
And here's the thing. James Gunn could actually get out of this bad publicity, in my opinion, with the Sell ZSJL, the Netflix campaign. Because, and now, I would kind of hate if they did this because it would take credit away from Skiiwalker, but if James Gunn said, hey, the plan all along was to finish the Snyderverse and then do our reboot, we just decided to outsource the plans to Netflix so that we could focus more on what we're doing.
I can already tell you that would be the biggest load of shit ever.
Oh, it would be, but people would believe it. We wouldn't believe it, but a lot of these trades would believe it. So it would definitely help with the bad publicity. And I think, and even still, James Gunn, even if I know it's technically David Zaslav's plan, but like it would definitely put us in more good graces if they finish the story. Give Henry Cavill his story. Give us Batfleck fans the conclusion to his story. We don't want to see these characters back forever. We just want to see the conclusion to the story that we love. And the Snyderverse has an end game. It has an end game. That is the whole point. And I feel if we campaign, we could get a shot at this. But here's my big question. Well, for now, we'll call it Zack Snyder's Justice League 2 and 3 still. We'll just go with it's going to be that same movie format. I know it could be a series or whatever, but for now, 2 and 3. If this were to happen, if Netflix and Warner Brothers and Zack Snyder and Zaslav and everyone were to say this would happen, do you think that Ben Affleck would come back for Zack Snyder's Justice League 2 and 3?
In a heartbeat. I mean, we've seen, it's evident that he would come back for Zack. You know, I mean, when he had said, oh, my time, you know, I hung up the cowl on Jimmy Kimmel show, you know, I'm done as Batman, couldn't crack the Batman film that everyone had said, like Jay Oliva has said, it was the best Batman film he ever read. Ben Affleck was done. He was fully convinced he was done. He wasn't going to cameo anything. He wasn't going to do any of that. And Zach calls him up and says, "Hey, Snyder Cut's happening because you also helped us out with a big trending event on November 17th." And he's just like, "And I want to film extra scenes, this nightmare verse. Will you come back?" And what did Ben do? "I'm there. I love you, dude." I think, what was his quote? He said, "I love you, brother. I'll do it. Whatever you need." It was something like that.
Didn't he do it for free even? I don't know if that's confirmed.
I believe he did do it for free, the Snyder Cut additional scenes. And now, obviously, when he came back to do the Flash and Aquaman, that wasn't for free. But, if anything, at that point, when Ben came back, I believe that he had hope that Zach may get a chance to finish his story, or at least to finish his story, Ben Affleck's Batman story, in a way. He loves the character. He's always been a huge fan of Batman. I think part of the deal was when Mike DeLuca and Pam Abdi especially got involved, to kind of hear like, "Hey, we're thinking about giving the Snyderverse one last run," like the Hollywood Reporter suggested. I think Ben was kind of like, "Sweet, like, let's do this. Let's come back." And it's sad that the Flash has been repurposed over and over and over again. And maybe restored in a bit of a way, restored to that original Hamada version that he wanted, where he completely wipes out the Snyderverse. Who knows what the hell's going on with that film? It'll be interesting one to see and talk about, because we've heard so many things about it. But the Aquaman 2 film is especially interesting, especially that it's going to come out after the Flashpoint film. And we know for a fact, because of Jason Momoa, that he has filmed a scene with multiple Batman. And we do know one of them was Ben Affleck. So who knows what's going on?
My guess is we're not going to see a Batman in Aquaman 2. I think at that point they want to kind of keep it standalone-ish, and I still have a theory that that's going to be Elseworlds. Honestly, I think it'll be. I think they're going to treat that one as Elseworlds personally.
And you think Aquaman's just going to kind of continue in this path as a separate universe Elseworlds film?
Honestly, I think they will. I don't know. I feel like, especially with Jason Momoa being Lobo, I don't know. I going back and forth on that one, because it's like James Gunn's half reboot plan. It's just. Well,
I heard something interesting, because you may have heard this too. When Jason Momoa was doing some interviews recently, he had talked about that no one was going to take the role of Aquaman away from him, that he was going to finish out, and that he always looked at Aquaman as a trilogy set of films. So obviously this is the second one. So what's going to be the third film? But more importantly, when James Gunn had talked about the Lobo situation, James Gunn had said there's not going to be one actor playing two different characters. And I was like, that's very interesting. You got one person saying this, you got James Gunn saying this, unless if James Gunn is distracting people saying, look over here and not over here, which I'll agree. Like, Jason Momoa would be perfect as Lobo. He's also wonderful as Aquaman. I'd be sad to see him anything else but Aquaman, but if he's Lobo, then I know he loves that character. It'd be wonderful. I don't know. It's all a very interesting situation, but see, that's the thing that's going on with DC. There's so much uncertainty, and with the general audience, they're already looking at this like DC is just crazy, and it's been bad film after bad film after bad film, with things like Wonder Woman 1984, Birds of Prey. I don't really, in my fair assessment, I think Shazam shouldn't really be considered a major success of a film, or like a smash hit with a general audience, because it was such a low budget film that $300 and some million was able to give it quite a bit of profit. So it's kind of like, but when you think about that, $300 and some million for a superhero flick, that's low. I mean, Black Adam did that. You know, Black Adam just
Yeah.
had a higher budget.
Because of COVID, and also was the D-list character, and people didn't trust DC, so using Black Adam as that end-all be-all, I'm going to be honest, that was an L on Zaslav's part, 100%. Using that film as the determination for the Snyderverse shows how it just shows how new he is.
And you know what? I wouldn't even throw that too much on David Zaslav. I really throw that on, personally. I think the Black Adam not being as successful as obviously Dwayne Johnson would have liked. I put that blame mostly on Walter Hamada, because I think what he did to the DC fans and DC community was cause so much doubt and so much anger in the community that people weren't able to like we talked about earlier. People weren't able to enjoy Henry Cavill coming back, and that was something Walter Hamada didn't want to happen. He was overruled on that to get Henry Cavill in there. So, and it seemed like every time Dwayne Johnson tried to connect his film to the larger DC universe and the Snyderverse, it seemed like Hamada was doing everything in his power to get him away from it. So personally, I would have loved to have known maybe what Dwayne Johnson's plans were if he got to make the film that he originally wanted to make with no influence from people like Hamada, and see what that film would have been like. I have a feeling it probably would have been a much more seasoned film, and I feel like it suffered because Hamada was there and Dwayne Johnson had a little amount of time for the release of Black Adam. I mean, because think about it. Mike DeLuca, Pam Abdi came in and were like, sure, you want Henry Cavill? Go call him up and shoot the scene, edit it, film is released. You know, like he didn't have really any other time to kind of do what he wanted to do, you know, with Hamada being over there over his shoulder. So I personally blame the lack of success of Black Adam because of Hamada and what he did to the DC community.
I mean, so I don't blame the lack of success on Zaslav. I blame Zaslav for using that movie to determine the Snyderverse's future, especially given everything you said.
I see what you're saying.
They used a retooled Hamada burger to determine if people will like the Snyderverse, and that just...
And if anything, I feel like that he listened to the wrong people at that time. And we knew that was going to happen, right? Like that was one of our worries with David Zaslav and with really anyone who was going to come into this job, because David Zaslav, I mean, he just ran Discovery, right? Like they don't really do films over at Discovery. And here he is. Hollywood is a whole nother beast. Anyone who denies that thought about that, there's inner groups, there's all these things that Hollywood does, right, that people just don't understand. And unless if you're in there, you're behind the scenes and seeing all this crap happen, you really don't know how Hollywood works. And I think with David Zaslav, he hired people thinking they would advise him fairly and not have any biasness or grudges to be held. And I think, and I've said this on our show as well, I think where David Zaslav really made the wrong call was simply he had looked at DC as untapped potential of why is it not doing the numbers that the MCU is doing? Why is it not doing what MCU is doing? He kept saying that in his head. He kept talking about Marvel has this formula. It's working. It's successful. And he's not wrong, right? We talked about Marvel's formula. That I think when he was hell-bent on getting Peter Safran to lead DC Studios, and then Peter was like, well, I want James Gunn, that it was like James Gunn who did like Guardians of the Galaxy and helped make MCU a smash hit. He knows the formula. He must know what Kevin Feige does. Why couldn't he bring that formula here? And I think he was too focused on that. I think he was too focused on let's do the Marvel thing. And in the end, I mean, he's going to get what he asked for, you know, whether that was the right decision time will tell. It depends on how successful James Gunn's DCU is, but I think a lot of DC fans would say probably not the greatest decision in the world, and maybe more importantly that the beginning wasn't handled well, like getting rid of Henry Cavill.
Exactly. And here's my biggest issue with them using, like, trying to compare it to the MCU. One advantage the MCU had over DC from the beginning was that there weren't really different version of Marvel characters. There wasn't really a different Iron Man. There wasn't a different Thor. I mean, the only Captain America was that very shitty film, whereas people have a Superman they like. People have a Batman they like. So right there, you're not going to get every single DC fan united. You're not going to get every superhero fan united the way you got Marvel. So that's a big difference right there. People were saying, like, this campaign won't happen because they might compare it to James Gunn stuff. It might overshadow it. But my biggest counter argument, like we'll go with Batman, for example, is that Ben Affleck's Batman is out there. Michael Keaton's Batman is out there. Christian Bale's Batman is out there. Robert Pattinson, for his fan base, that's already, well, I guess James Gunn's using that, but like those other three, it's like the only way that it won't compare is if they take a memory device, wipe our memories of those other Batmen out there. That is the only way it won't compare. So in terms of the Salt campaign, you can't use the whole compare it, it will outshine it. Too late for that. It already happened. But at least I'll give this a chance if our story's completed.
Yeah. And I think you bring up a wonderful point, because I think that is a lot of people's, and it's my kind of concern too, of why James Gunn won't do it, because I do see ego is continuously running DC Studios. It ran before, after, during Zach, and I'm not saying Zach was the egotistical one. I'm saying there was other people being egotistical trying to run Zach's Snyderverse, and I think Zach just had the balls to say, no, you're right. I mean, remember when people were trying to say Metropolis, Smallville, why couldn't this be Chicago?
God.
And it was like, stupid. Shut up. It's Kansas. He's supposed to be a farm boy. Like, what are you talking about? Or like, why can't they go back to Krypton? Because it blew up, you idiot. That kind of crazy theme that you have literally people who have no clue about DC trying to run it. Here now with James Gunn, you do have someone who knows DC that's trying to run it, which could be interesting. But I think the important thing, like you said, like a lot of people's problem is like, well, James Gunn having a big ego and wants to be the savior of DC. He's not going to want something that competes and overshadows and could potentially take some of his fire away, some of his spotlight. And I understand that. I completely understand that. The part where that doesn't make sense and where that is an invalid argument anymore is Matt Reeves, the Batman. If he got rid of Matt Reeves, the Batman, then I would have said, yeah, I'm worried and I don't think the Netflix thing is possible. But he's allowing someone else's universe that he has no say over other than, he does have some say. He's the DC studio, but Matt Reeves clearly, think about this. The head of DC Studios, I'm sure the conversation started with Matt Reeves and James Gunn asking, hey, would you be a part of our DC? We don't want to have multiple Batman out there. Nope. I want my own thing. I don't want to be part of your universe. I want my universe. I want to do my own thing. So James Gunn's like, well, shit. Okay, I guess I got to change my plans and have a Batman with a son because I got to make it different. Like clearly he's okay that there's going to be another Batman out there that's going to be compared to his Batman. Who's going to win that battle? It's going to become a question. Literally, when that second Batman film comes out, all they're going to do is opening weekend. Who won? Which Batman did it better? We do it now, and yet there's no two Batman coming out simultaneously. So for anyone using that argument of James Gunn doesn't want to be outgunned, overshadowed, that argument doesn't work anymore. Like you could bring up, well, the Batman is still at least WB, but it's not DCU, and it's two Batman. They will compare. One is completely by James Gunn's design. The other is not by his design. Who's going to win that battle?
Time will tell.
Yeah.
And here's the thing with Netflix, though. there's no box office, at least with Netflix. So like if
not much box office data, but I can tell you Netflix is working really hard to, there's still a lot of grudges against Netflix for being like the first major streaming service, which is why a lot of theaters don't allow for their movies in their auditoriums. But the difference is the content, the quality of content too. When the Knives Out sequel, Glass Onion, was coming out and going to have a limited theatrical run, studio theaters were pissed off because they were trying to convince Netflix, please let us have it like a couple more weekends. Let's have it 3 weekends. Let us have it for a month. And Netflix was like, nope, you get it like for 1 weekend and then it's ours. Then we're going to release it. And it did really well in theaters for those couple of days that it was out. And then it was completely on streaming and it became one of Netflix's biggest films, so it's one of those scenes where I can see with Rebel Moon and especially with Zack Snyder's pull and how Army of the Dead did in that couple weekend theatrical, like limited release. I think Netflix is going to have more theatrical releases. I bet.
I agree 100%. I think in this license, though, if David Zaslav, James Gunn, and Peter Safran are worried about the limited theatrical run overshadowing their stuff, they can always say, okay, no limited theatrical runs. If we're going to put Zack Snyder's Justice League 2 and 3 on Netflix, you cannot put these in theaters. So that way there is not that box office data. So that way it's a way to kind of hide that. Even if Ben Affleck's Batman does better, it won't be completely obvious to James Gunn. Or like,
sure.
It won't be too obvious to the public, perception.
Yes, and you bring up a really great point there where here's the silly thing about anyone who kind of hates this idea of licensing out the Snyderverse to any streaming service. We just say Netflix for the obvious reason. It's not for us to figure out. We are just showing a demand. The community out there is voicing this large demand to have the Snyderverse continue elsewhere. And it's possible because we've seen DC already start to licensing out to Netflix, for example. We've seen it been licensed with Lucifer when they took it over from Fox. They had to get rights from DC and Warner Brothers. They had to, because that's who owned the property. The Sandman, Sweet Tooth. So there's been plenty of DC content on Netflix, and they've talked about licensing out the Bruce Timm Batman show that they were going to do. So, it's entirely possible, but the big thing to look at it is Warner Brothers Discovery gets to decide, right? Like they get to tell Netflix like, hey, okay, we'll allow you to do this. Here's what we want for it. And here's some of the little fine font, like what we want or expect or what you can or can't do. They can easily do that. It's not for us to figure it out. It's for Netflix and Warner Brothers Discovery or whoever streaming service wants to figure it out. But the important thing of why this is possible is because WBD is insanely in debt. David Zaslav was shocked by when he got into the company and saw they can't do anything. And I honestly wouldn't be surprised if that's why James Gunn's first phase 1 of DCU looks a little light and not, front heavy, with the Trinity or the bigger characters. You got a Green Lantern HBO Max series, which a lot of people say, why isn't that a movie? I'm okay with the series personally, but you got Swamp Thing, which I'm excited for Swamp Thing once again, but Swamp Thing is not like an A-list DC character. He's like BC. And then you got Amazons with no Wonder Woman. You got Amanda Waller, which you ruined her in the Suicide Squad, which failed in the box office. So there's that. You got Booster Gold, which is, I'm excited for that character because as a DC fan, I know who that is, but the general audience has no clue who Booster Gold is. That's probably a E league character. You really haven't set up the DCU phase 1 to be this historic, iconic, like, holy hell, this is phase 1. The Authority. No one knows who the Authority is, but a few DC fans. Hell, when James Gunn first said Authority, I was kind of like, who? Like, oh, wait, okay, I know that group. I had to think about it. The truth is that if Netflix wants to do it, Netflix has currently, as of February 7th, $161 billion of net worth. And to put it simply, WBD is not even 40 billion. They need money. If anything, this Netflix deal could fund James Gunn's DCU franchise. So what are they worried about?
Exactly. James Gunn's not in a position to say no. That's or David Zaslav. Like, David Zaslav is the one who gets the final say, but James Gunn is not in a position to try to overrule this because they need money right now. They are in debt. And I say the more projects that they get out, the more money that WBD makes, the more money that James Gunn has to fund his projects. Because again, the Snyderverse has its end. It has its conclusion. And I mean, I'll tell you this, as a fan, what I want, and this is what I want as a fan, and I'm going to ask for. I want the Ayer cut. I want Man of Tomorrow. I want the Batfleck movie. I want Zack Snyder's Justice League 2, Zack Snyder's Justice League 3. And that's up for them to figure out what will work and what Ben Affleck would come back for. I agree with you. He would come back for Zack Snyder's Justice League 2 and 3 because he did come back for those scenes. And people will try to counter, well, it's a few scenes. It's not like a whole movie. Yeah, but those scenes, those were literally meant to set up Zack Snyder's Justice League 2 and 3. I mean, that's what he came back for. He didn't come back to close off his character. He came back to set up more. So
yeah, and it's so funny. I've had so many friends and family watch the Snyder Cut, and the one issue I always hear about the Snyder Cut was the ending. And people, the reason why they have issues with the ending is like, oh my God, this, like, well, what's next? Like, when is the next film? Well, there's not a new film right now, but he totally was setting this up, and I need to see what happens here. It's like, well, Zach did that on purpose. And some people go like, well, I need an end to this film. And Zach, why Zach gave us that. And he wanted us all to have a little taste so that when that film came out on HBO Max, we would all jump on Twitter and do hashtag restore the Snyderverse. And what was it? 1.5 million tweets to get that happening. There is a demand to see this done,
Exactly. And that's how I feel. It's like, I want to see that conclusion. I want to see the cliffhangers resolved, which brings us to, I would say, kind of the main topic of this video is there was another cliffhanger that was set up in Zack Snyder's Justice League.
Yeah.
Is that scene with Lex Luthor and Deathstroke setting up the Batfleck movie. Now, as I said on that recent episode of Batman's Thoughts, that I think they should do this because it would be a great stepping stone to test the waters out. It'd be a smaller scale project for Netflix to kind of give a taste for the Snyderverse success. Plus, it's something different because Batman's fighting Deathstroke. He's not fighting Joker. He's not fighting Riddler, we'll say, since the Batman did. He's not fighting Court of Owls or whatever Matt Reeves plans. It's something different. But now James Gunn is doing a separate Batman movie. So that's 2 theatrical Batman movies. So now it's one thing to have Ben Affleck in an ensemble cast. But now here's the question. Would WBD allow a third Batfleck movie, or not a third Batfleck movie, a third Batman movie starring Ben Affleck, even on Netflix? That's the tricky one. And what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, let's put it this way. When David Zaslav said there weren't going to be 2 Batmen, there are. There's Matt Reeves, there's whatever DCU Batman this can be. There's going to be the animated Batmans that we're about to get. And yes, James Gunn did say he's doing a connected universe in terms of animation as well. But last I heard, Bruce Timm is still getting his Amazon, that they license out to Amazon, his Batman TV show that Matt Reeves was also supposed to produce. So having a third Batman, once again, WBD can set the contract details to where they get a little bit of that profit from Netflix if Ben Affleck wants to do a Batman film. And I think you're absolutely right. Batman, that the first two films, if they do decide to license out, if they do decide to license out to Netflix, I think the first two films that will give Netflix a great tell of if they should continue this and maybe renegotiate the deal. Maybe they just ask for the 2-film deal, make the Batfleck movie and do the Man of Tomorrow with Henry Cavill. Those 2 films, people have been begging to see it. And if those films succeed, then let's bring in the other ones. Let's bring in the Cyborg film. Let's bring in the New Gods. Let's do whatever Green Lantern thing that Zach wanted to do, or the Atom movie that he had with Ryan Choi and all that. Like there's so many, depending on how those 2 films do, that can jumpstart a whole new world on Netflix. And like you said, it doesn't have to battle theatrically, with whatever WBD happens. Maybe it's just streaming numbers. And I think that's an okay battle right there.
Exactly. And I agree. It's because again, with Ben Affleck's Batman, as I said before, it's one movie. It's not a trilogy. It's one solo movie. So it's something, it wouldn't completely overshadow the other 2 Batman anyways. They're already having multiple Batman. That ship's, I don't know, that genie's out of the bottle. So you can't go back and say we only want one Batman. Yeah. And again, it's a clear end game. This Ben Affleck's Batman has an end game. Yeah. So I still think even with that, they would do that. And as you said, that's just more, WBD can make a share of the profit. And as I say, the more projects they license out to Netflix, the more money WBD makes. They are poor right now. They are in debt. They are not in a position to say no. And James Gunn should also want this, honestly, so he can do more with what he wants with his stuff. Fund his stuff more. And again, if we see our Batman get a conclusion, I'm more willing to embrace James Gunn's DCU Batman. Yeah. The only thing that does concern me, though, is, and I go back and forth on this, I could see this encouraging Batman or Ben Affleck to do the solo film, and I could see it discouraging him from doing the solo film. Is if he directs, this is rumor for now. Hopefully this doesn't get confirmed between the recording and the premiere of this video. If so, sorry, at the time of the recording, it was rumor at the time still. But if he directs this Batman film, I'm going to give you kind of 2 points of view on both sides. On one hand, he might want to do the Batman film because playing the character might give him a better sense of how to direct this new Batman film that he does. If he plays the character more recently, he can kind of really put a lot more of his aspects into this new other Batman film he directs. But on the other hand, it might be too much Batman for him because it's like he's playing Batman here, now he's directing another Batman here. What do you think about? Like, if Ben Affleck directs this Batman film, what do you think that means for his Batman film on Netflix?
I'll be honest. I think Ben, if he does direct the Brave and the Bold film, I think it's less likely that he'll do a Batman movie himself. And that's simply because I think he's just one of those guys where he wouldn't want to take the thunder away from someone that when you take on that director role, you're a mentor. People look up to you. People look up to you for the answers. Now imagine having that person who's leading the charge, do something that's in a way going to compete with yours. You would kind of have a bad taste in your mouth about that. And I think Ben, being a director, a producer, especially with his new studio that he's partnering with, I think it's Redbird Capital. And I think they're calling it Artist Equity. Yeah. With Matt Damon. And he's also done the Greenlight productions that he teamed up with HBO Max to train directors, to let them make a movie. He had that whole thing. And I just see him being that type of guy, knowing him, that would say, I'm not going to do that to somebody. I'm not going to do that to an actor. But then again, he did come back for The Flash and Aquaman. and that was supposed to lead off into more Snyderverse. So who knows exactly? Maybe Ben kind of said, hey, there is a multiverse. I could be completely wrong about that, but I think if he's at the helm of a Batman film, I think he would be less inclined to do his own Batman thing. But I did read from comicbook.com, little shout out there. Jenna Anderson talked about the interview that James Gunn had about Ben Affleck. And obviously the famous quote when they were doing their chapter 1 DCU announcement, they said, we're working with Ben Affleck, who really has been a part of our architectural team trying to bring things together. And he really wants to direct one of our projects, and we're excited for him to doing that. So probably with his new production company, but they asked for clarification on this. And here's what Safran had to say. He said, when they asked him if Ben Affleck was going to direct Brave and the Bold, Safran said, no. We're just talking to Ben in general about stuff. And then James Gunn added, yeah, we and Ben have not decided together exactly. We're talking about 2 different projects right now. So according to them, Ben is not in talks to do Batman Brave and the Bold. Now that could be misdirection, because if there is someone who is extremely qualified to direct a Batman film and would do a phenomenal job, it would be Ben. But let's say James Gunn, these 2 other projects that he's discussing with Ben, let's say they're not Batman, then I think you have a good shot of Ben Affleck being like, yeah, I'll do it. But here's the crazy part. Just like he did with Argo, an Oscar-winning film, he wrote it, directed it, starred in it. In this case, I think whatever he directed for the DCU, I don't think he would act in it, but he probably would write it. That's going to take up a lot of his time. That's going to take away his opportunity to do something with Netflix, I think, just in terms of, you see how Zach is. Zach is so busy, right? Like when he's directing and writing, he's doing it all, right? And it takes up a year of his life, really. And just the way when Ben was writing the original Batman film, it was taking up a lot of his time. He could barely get past doing press for, what was it, Live by Night film without someone asking him about Batman. And you could tell he was like really frustrated with those types of questions. Like, I'm working on it, leave me alone. I see it. It's one of those things where I think if there's enough push now with this hashtag sell Snyderverse to Netflix, hashtag sell ZSJL to Netflix, to where that becomes the primary discussion that is happening. And Zach asked before James Gunn nails down that deal with Ben on directing a future project, whatever that may be. You got to look at it. When's the next Superman film? What was it?
2025.
2025. Thank you. Really, you're kind of looking at maybe that gives us 4-5 years before Ben directs something with the DCU. So that gives us time but you also have to remember Ben is going to be writing away, trying to make it the best thing possible. So now is the time to really make your voices heard about this hashtag sell the Snyderverse to Netflix, and licensing it out. So yeah.
And I think one thing you kind of bring up in terms of writing the Batfleck film, here's kind of the one advantage, though, is that the Batfleck film is mostly written. And now that it is this Elseworlds thing, there's no Jeff Johns. He doesn't have to accommodate what Gunn's doing.
Yeah.
He probably wrote it with what Snyder had in mind. So
yeah,
he wouldn't have to make that many changes for writing. So I think, and let's be honest, he probably would not direct, if you were to do the Batfleck film, I don't think he would direct it. And honestly, I'm fine with that.
I think he would have Zach direct it.
Yeah, I think this is the one way I think he would do the Batfleck film for sure, is if Zach came and Zach asked him to. And I think if that was like the way for for Zach's story to happen, I think, put it like this, I think Ben Affleck will do anything to finish Zach's story. The one thing that he needs is Zach. I think if Zach comes and, Zach can have Chris Terrio work on it, and I think Ben Ben Affleck would kind of trust Zack Snyder to touch that up. I don't think he would feel the need to be as involved if it was Zack Snyder working on that same script. I think Zack Snyder's probably one of the few people who could work on a script that Ben Affleck did, and Ben Affleck's like, you got this.
Yeah, I think absolutely. I think a lot of it does ride on Zack. If Zack is given the opportunity, I think obviously if Zack is given that opportunity, probably one of the first people he's going to call is Ben. Because we know at that point, Ray Fisher is already, he's on, Ray Porter's on. I think the people that would be kind of in question would be Henry Cavill and Gal, because of just how they've been treated about the character. And it's, hopefully they don't look at it as like a demotion to be on Netflix, and they shouldn't, because Netflix is a wonderful, I mean, both of them have had great success over at Netflix with The Witcher, Enola Holmes, and Red Notice with Gal. And she has another thing coming out on Netflix that's, I think, is going to be huge. But with, I think Ben, if Zack is back, Ben is back. Absolutely. I don't see him directing because of, I think that it's very stressful having to wear a cowl and be in all that suit. And, you know, that's the Batman was always going to be a difficult task. I think James Gunn made it an even more difficult task by him constantly trying to tell Ben how to write his film. I do think, yeah, or sorry, did I say, who did I say?
James Gunn.
I said James. See, I'm slipping. Jeff Johns is who I meant. Thank you for catching that.
That's why I like the ensemble stuff. The ensemble podcast.
You know, with Jeff Johns being there, I think with I think Ben will make some tweaks to his Batfleck movie that he originally wrote because it's been so long and some information, some big things have been, you know, spoiled by it. We know Alfred was going to die, most likely. We know James Gordon was probably going to die because Joe Manganiello said, my character was basically going to kill everyone that was close to Batman. Well, at that point, who would have hurt the most? You know, who would have hurt the fans? Alfred dying would have killed us. You know, James Gordon, yeah, that probably would have beat us up too. Maybe Catwoman, maybe Batgirl, maybe would have been killed too in that film. I don't think he would have killed Batgirl simply because it'd be weird to bring her, introduce her in a film, and then boom, you're gone. But when you think about the film that Ben had, it was really some of the things that were leaked and you were hearing. The fight scene was gonna rival the Arkham Origins theme with Deathstroke. Like, it was just gonna be such a great film. But I think to keep kind of the surprise, I think Ben would tweak a few things.
I think he would tweak things. Maybe Batgirl wouldn't be in this film anymore. I think that's one thing that would change. And Deathstroke's an important part of this movie, though. I mean, that's one character who would have to be in this movie. And that's the reason why I want this Batfleck film mainly, is because I want to see that cliffhanger in Zack Snyder's Justice League pay off. But there's also rumors that Deathstroke would be the bad guy in the Brave and the Bold film. And I'm going to tell you right now, that's one thing I think that would kill this Batfleck film, is if Deathstroke's in that Brave and the Bold film. I want the Batfleck film to happen, but I have to be honest, wouldn't happen if Deathstroke's the bad guy in the bat.
Yeah, it would be a really great. I mean, maybe we shouldn't be even saying this out loud, because if James Gunn watches, you know, he'll take the idea as the way to shut us all up. But that would honestly be certainly a big nail in the coffin. Yeah.
And that's the only thing that would get in the way. I think Ben Affleck and Joe Manganiello would still do the Nightmare stuff, because Joe Manganiello did show support for you even bringing up the hashtag. So
he did. I'll be the first person to say that I think he was. I would say he's aware of the hashtag of SNYDERVERSE. I don't want to speak for him in terms of his support. I got the sense, and because I always like to be fair and honest, I got the sense that when he liked the post, it was simply because I was being nice. You know, I was like saying, hey, man, I hope 2023 is treating you well, wishing you and your family well. I think it was kind of like, oh, thank you, you know, kind of thing. When he did the praying hands.
Oh, the prayer. Okay.
But the important thing is I did bring up and I did mention how much we loved his Deathstroke. and how much we would love to see him continue as Deathstroke as part of the Snyderverse, going to Netflix. So he probably read it. I think he's a smart guy. I think he read it, so he knows was part of that conversation. But like I said, I don't want to speak for him in terms of his support, but I do know clearly he's aware of a movement for this.
Yeah, exactly. He's aware. He has the awareness, and again, I think he would definitely. I do think he would come back for Zack Snyder's Justice League 2 and 3, but
absolutely. I mean, you could tell when he first auditioned for the Man of Steel film, he liked Zack. He couldn't wait for an opportunity to work with Zack. And when the Deathstroke role came up to him, actually from Ben Affleck, to me, I think it was just icing on the cake that Zack Snyder was a part of it. And clearly Joe was like, he loved this Deathstroke character. He had thought long and hard about it and thought about the spin-offs that he could do with this character. So he it's one of those scenes that's heartbreaking for him. I feel like every time he's been close to having this moment of, and I'm not saying he's not a star or anything, he is, but like in terms of hitting that next level, that blow up, that thing that completely changes your career. I think Deathstroke would have been one of those characters where he just would have been perfect for the role. He would have nailed it. And we've seen some great depictions of live action Deathstroke, in the Arrow show. Titans had a great Deathstroke, but I think he would have brought an element to it that people just, he just would have been a great, truly anti-hero character,
And I loved him for the little bit we saw him in the nightmare scene, setting up the Batfleck movie, setting up in the nightmare scene as well.
Yeah.
Is that basically he did a good job in that. And I think one thing is if he did do the Batfleck movie, even though I know he's likely going to be in James Gunn's DCU, if he did a Batman movie, Batman's more known to the general audience. If he did the Batman movie on Netflix, that would give the general audience more exposure to Deathstroke. So
true. I think the issue would become then is, and this is one of those things, like hopefully if they do decide to do Deathstroke, hopefully at that point, maybe it's not Joe playing Deathstroke in James Gunn's universe. Hopefully it's someone else, to kind of make it okay. And then at that point, maybe Ben can tweak it a bit to where the first movie isn't Deathstroke. Maybe it's someone else. Maybe it's a prequel to Ben Affleck getting into BVS. So that way there's a little bit of separation between those two Deathstrokes. But let's just hope that Brave and the Bold isn't Deathstroke and it isn't Joe. Because I do think that would change the game. And I think Joe would be legally obligated not to be Deathstroke in another IP. Well, not IP, but like licensed deal,
I think the only one who based on what Mikey Sutton and Sil Abdul said yesterday, again, to clarify for people watching, we're recording this on Wednesday. So yesterday or Tuesday, whatever. Mikey said that Ezra Miller would be like the character to travel between the multiverses. So I think Ezra Miller's the only one I think who probably has that leeway to do the Netflix stuff as well as James Gunn's DCU. So I don't think Joe Manganiello probably doesn't have that same leeway. So it's
probably not. I mean, as like you said, with Flash just being a character that can travel between the multiverses, he can do that, right? I think the only issue you run into with Ezra is that they get stuck in terms of like scheduling details. If they do another Flash film for DCU, but you also now you have to have like a connected universe to where Ezra's Flash knows what happened in this universe and also knows what happened in this universe. And so that there's kind of this cognitive like recollection of what's going on rather than there is no connection, right? Like, oh, I'm just in this universe now. And like, oh, I'm just in this universe now. Like not to have not any type of dialogue or understanding that this Flash has also been in this and that, it creates a little bit of storytelling issues. But if you told me I had to deal with that little bit of storytelling issues to get the Snyderverse, I would welcome it.
And that's kind of, there's certain things, I'm just going to be honest, that's up to Netflix to figure out. Like, I'll put it like this. With Aquaman being I always say, like, Aquaman doesn't really work as canon in the Snyderverse because of all those contradictions. Mira's parents, her accent, the whole Atlanteans being able to talk underwater thing. Here's the way I look at it.
Yeah.
If it were to happen, that was up to WBD to figure out. Now that they're going this other route, I'm not going to treat those films as canon to the Snyderverse. That was the trade-off I was willing to accept. But the point is, that's how I feel with this. Like, in terms of Ezra Miller, in terms of being in these different this different stuff. Joe Manganiello scheduling, or if he is in the Batman Brave and the Bold movie, if Ben Affleck wants to be Batman, if he directs still, or wants to be Batman for just the ensemble films, or do the solo film. Me as a fan, I'm going to ask for the big five that I mentioned earlier. I'm going to ask for the cast to be used. That Zach's cast, chosen cast to be used. That's up to Netflix and Warner Brothers Discovery to work that out. That's up to the actors to work around their scheduling. It wasn't our job to worry about Henry Cavill being The Witcher and Superman. That was Henry Cavill's job to worry about, which, there's multiple things that happened. I don't want to completely blame the Superman thing, but the point is,
honestly, sorry, go ahead.
Henry Cavill. That was Henry Cavill's thing to worry about, not ours. But
yeah, when it comes to the Henry Cavill and Witcher thing, I know some people are like, "Oh my God, he gave up Witcher to be Superman, and WBD screwed him." I don't exactly look at it that way. There were a lot of people on set talking about Henry's dissatisfaction with the writers of The Witcher. And I respect Henry Cavill for that. If it's true that he left because the writers were taking The Witcher in a direction that he felt was not
true to the character
and true to the story and the author of The Witcher. And he's right. He's Superman. He's been Superman. He knows that not everything is going to be a perfect adaptation of the character, but clearly some things were done that he was very vocal and not happy about, to where he, integrity wise, like he was like, as a fan of the character, I cannot stay. And I respect that. I'm very depressed that he's not going to be The Witcher, because this guy was not only a perfect Superman, but a perfect Geralt of Rivia. Like, oh my God. And he'd be a perfect James Bond. Just saying at Amazon, if you want to do a James Bond film with Henry Cavill, I'd be down for it.
Perfect Warhammer, which I know he'll be. We haven't seen it, but I'm sure he'll be that. And Henry Cavill, one thing, he bounces back on his feet, and that's one thing that I give him so much credit for.
Yeah, I think I keep talking about it, but like it was such poor business practice by WBD to not honor an agreement with Henry Cavill to continue as Superman. But Henry clearly probably learned a hard lesson that day. And I think he'll never fall for something like that again, which is good. But just as you said, he bounces back easily. He was able to take control of the situation and now do another dream project. When you think about Henry Cavill's career, he's going to be Superman. He's going to be The Witcher, two of his favorite characters of all time. And now he's going to be Warhammer. Like, the guy has already had an incredible career, and has gotten to play characters that he absolutely loves. How many, young men dream about playing someone like Batman and never get to do it. He's now getting to play 3 characters that he absolutely loves.
And hopefully he does get to at least finish his Superman story properly with Zack Snyder's Justice League 2 and Man of Steel 2. And same thing with Ben Affleck. Hopefully Ben Affleck at least gets to finish that story properly. There is one more point, I think, another thing that probably killed the Batfleck project, though, and that would be if Ben Affleck directs a Deathstroke movie. I think if that happens, I think that's also...
And no one's brought that up, Dan. I think you're the first on that one.
I thought I heard someone bring it up in Sill's chat about like him directing like a Nightwing v Deathstroke movie, but I heard that from somewhere, but
that could be cool, like a Titans versus Deathstroke thing. I know that was done recently with a TV series, but the Titans show has been a hit or miss for me. I stopped watching it after I think was it season 2 or 3 that had Deathstroke in it.
I've been watching it until they announced Henry Cavill was gone. That's like one of the things I'm just not watching out of frustration with that. But yeah, that show kind of went down. It did go downhill in quality. I think season 4, from what I watched, was better than season 3. But
there was, like you said, when it came to Titans, there was moments where I was like, "Oh man, this is awesome," and then there was moments where they completely dropped the ball and like just like a wasted like completely wasted opportunity. Like it was right there, not a hard thing to achieve. And they're like, what are we doing? Don't know.
They start off good. The season start off great, and then they turn to shit. That's been like the way Deathstroke was killed off like early on in the last episode. It was like Joe Manganiello would have really brought something better too.
Which I liked the actor they picked for Deathstroke, and that like I said, I think every live action version of Deathstroke that we've had has brought something to the table that I've really enjoyed about the character, and I think they found kind of what worked for them. There's just other areas where the Titans show in particular failed for me. Like, no offense to Ian Holmes, I love him. I thought he was wonderful in Game of Thrones, but him as Bruce Wayne was not the right way to go, but not only that, it was kind of a repetitive show. Like, how many times did they have to say, Dick Grayson, you must be better than Batman, or like, you must be a better person than Batman. You best do it differently than Batman. They kept like coming to that resolution where like, I'm not Batman, I'm going to be my own person. And it was that same storyline for like 3 seasons. And I was just like, what are we doing?
It doesn't really work when you're in season 3 in Gotham, because like, season 3, the problem is season 3 was like a Batman show without Batman. Let's be honest here. Season 3 was Batman without Batman.
Yeah, I stopped watching in season because was that the Red Hood story?
Yes.
I have to be honest. As someone like, I'm not like a purist, like where it has to be perfect. But like Under the Red Hood is to me still like one of the greatest Batman stories ever told. And the animated film is a masterpiece of a story. I was not happy with the Red Hood of how they did that in Titans. And that's partly why I felt like, I was like, I'm just not going to be happy with this. So I was like, I'm done. I don't want to get pissed off, but
I don't blame you. That it doesn't matter how good the actors are. If the writers suck, then it sucks. I mean, look at Justice League. I mean, the issue wasn't the actors. The actors all did. I mean, for what they were directed, the actors were good, but the writing and the directors were not. And that's unfortunately what led to a lot of the downfall with, losing Ben Affleck as Batman is just bad direction.
I mean, we've talked about this before with Justice League, but unfortunately, when you think about how terrible the production of the reshoots were with Jeff Johns and Josh Whedon, that really, I think, morale wise destroyed the DCEU. Because I mean, the fact that you had Ben Affleck trying to rally everyone together saying, let's walk off set. It's crazy. Like, think about that. Like you have the star of the movie literally being like, this is bullshit, we're leaving. Like it's kind of crazy. And that really kind of put a bad taste in his mouth. They saw what they wanted his Batman to be, and he was like, I can't do this. Once again, kind of a similar situation with Henry Cavill as the Witcher. Now Ben Affleck is Batman during that Justice League thing, and he's writing the Batman. He saw what Jeff Johns wanted him to do with his character, and he had the pride in his work to go, clearly this is not my thing, and like this is not what I want to do, and this is what I think is not right for the character. Let's just say I'm out. I'll let you guys reboot it. I respect that. I respect that someone just didn't take the check and say, let me make a shit film of a character I love nonetheless, right? Like he loves that character. And to kind of just ride the wave, ride the train. He's took a step back and said, I'm out. I respect that.
And I was like that too with Ben Affleck. Because the thing is, like with Ben Affleck is, unlike some of these other actors, he's a really, really big A-lister outside of that role. So financially, he could afford to kind of just walk off. That's why I don't blame other actors if they don't do that. But Ben Affleck was just in a position where he's kind of able to not to argue more. But that's why I think he would. I think for Zack Snyder, he would come back for Zack Snyder, literally because of what you said about how he was going to walk out offset. I think it really showed his loyalty towards the product, shows his loyalty towards Zack Snyder. That's why, kind of to summarize how I feel about Ben Affleck being on Netflix. I think in the end of the day, I think if Zack Snyder is there, Ben Affleck will be there. I think for sure, again, we'll say Zack Snyder's Justice League 2 and 3 for now. Series, whatever, one project, whatever. But for now, he would come back for Zack's arc. I think the only thing that is in question is the Ben Affleck movie. I think if Zack directs it, I think if it's part of the deal to get the Snyderverse, I think Ben Affleck would do that. I think Warner Brothers, I think the hurdles is Warner Brothers Discovery with 2 Batman, but I also think the advantage is money. The more projects you license out, the more money you get. Besides, Ben Affleck's story is really just his full story that is essential. Is really just the Batfleck v. Deathstroke movie, Zack Snyder's Justice League 2 and 3. That's it. 1 solo project, 2 ensemble projects, and then he's gone. So I think it'll be a hurdle, but I truly think if we fight for it, we can have Ben Affleck on Netflix. If we fight for it, I really do think we could really have a shot at getting the Batfleck movie, getting a shot at Zack Snyder's Justice League 2 and 3. No matter what, though, we need to ask for it because we are fans. We have a product we want to see. Let the actors work out their scheduling. Let Zack Snyder, Netflix, Ben Affleck, James Gunn, David Zaslav work it out. And if people are saying, oh, that role, Ben Affleck doesn't want to do it, Ben Affleck is a grown-ass adult, okay? If he doesn't want to do it, that's up for him to decide, not up for me to decide. Saying that Ben Affleck shouldn't do it for his health is just as bad as saying Ben Affleck needs to do it regardless of his health. Let adults make choices for themselves. And Trey, I'm going to have you give your final thoughts on this particular topic, and then we're going to go over the rules of engagement since this is a Netflix Snyderverse topic.
Well, when it comes to Ben, like you said, he's a grown man. He can decide on himself. I'm still surprised that so many people have that argument about Ben, saying like, well, it's not good for his mental health. And I get like people say that because of what Matt Damon told Ben Affleck, but I truly believe that happened because of people like Jeff Johns, because of people like Josh Whedon. I think he had truly such a horrible time during those reshoots that he did get a sour taste in his mouth about the character. But what did you notice start to happen when Zach gave him the call and said, hey brother, we're doing Snyder Cut. Gonna do some additional shoots. You want to get in? Zach, I'm there. He gets into the suit and all of a sudden I'm in the Flash. I'm in Aquaman 2. I think I finally figured out the character. Yeah. I really like this. I love being Batman. You start to see something change in Ben to where he starts to enjoy it because I think those people weren't around anymore to cause any problems with him. Ben loves the character. If he wants to come back for the Batfleck movie, I am all there for it. He's my favorite version of Batman to this date. And I think he treats the character in a way that I really appreciate. And it's the type of depiction of the character of how I view Batman in live action. And compared to what I love in the comics, he's all those scenes. Compared to what I love what Kevin Conroy did as Batman, I think to this day, I think no one would say Kevin Conroy is. I don't think anyone would deny that Kevin Conroy was like the best Batman ever. and to have a live action version of Kevin Conroy's Batman, Ben Affleck is that version for me. I think he nailed it in the same way that Kevin Conroy did it as an animated Batman. So if he wants to do it, I'm there for it. Hashtag sell the Snyderverse to Netflix. Hashtag sell ZSJL to Netflix. I'm here for it. It's possible. Let Netflix and Warner Bros. Discovery figure out the contract details. They need money. Netflix has money. They love Zach. And it's just a perfect alignment of the stars right there. It's possible.
And to get there, to get the Batfleck movie, to get Zack Snyder's Justice League 2 and 3, Skiiwalker the Jedi has rules of engagement that we must follow, and we are going to go over the 3. And I'm gonna do this the same way I did this with Super Bowl last week.
Oh dear, you're throwing me under the bus.
You don't know when I'm gonna throw you under the bus. I may do it later. I may do it now. We'll see. So rule 1 with the rules of engagement. Be positive. This is a brand new movement. This is we're not asking for anyone to be fired. We're just asking for the story that we love. So there's no need for negativity. There's no need for all this drama. Look, we all had disagreements in the past. Boycott Black Adam or not. Support the Suicide Squad or not. I don't know if I saw that argument. Or, we shouldn't, whether or not we wanted to release the Snyder Cut, we should have fought for that. Whatever hashtags or whatever scoopers that we trust or don't trust. This is a new movement, a fresh start with everyone. We have to be positive to show that we're not this toxic fan base. We're just passionate fans who want to see the conclusion to the story that we love. And that's what we need to do. Be positive. And rule number 2 is
use the 2 hashtags. Hashtag sell Snyderverse to Netflix and hashtag sell ZSJL to Netflix. This is really the best way to get the algorithm of Twitter working best for us to make your voices heard. Feel free to tag people like Netflix, Zack Snyder. There's no need to really get WBD or James Gunn in this conversation. I think right now you're really just advocating to Netflix and their streaming service that there is a large demand for Zack Snyder's continued Snyderverse over on Netflix. So if you show that demand, then they're going to approach WBD with an offer saying, hey, what will it take for you guys to sell or license this IP to us to run over at Netflix? So don't use any of the old hashtags. It's nothing against those old hashtags. They still serve a purpose, and they will serve a purpose again once Netflix makes that deal, or any streaming service, really. It just makes sense that Netflix is the home of Zack Snyder and Stone Quarry Productions. So why not continue over at a service that already really loves having Zack over there? So use the 2 hashtags. Hashtag sell Snyderverse to Netflix and hashtag sell ZSJL to Netflix.
But Trey, what if we want the Batfleck movie? What if we want Man of Tomorrow? What if we want the Air Cut? I don't just want Zack Snyder's Justice League 2 and 3.
Well, you can simply put in your tweet, hey, Netflix, I would really love to see the Batfleck movie, or I would really love to see Henry Cavill return in a Superman film called The Man of Tomorrow. Will you please hashtag, or no, please, do hashtag, we would love to see it licensed out to you guys. So please hashtag sell ZSJL to Netflix. Please hashtag sell Snyderverse to Netflix. You can have that conversation. You can have something in there regarding the tip of IP you want to see. Oh man, I really want to see Ray Fisher as Cyborg. He was phenomenal in that. Please hashtag sell Snyderverse to Netflix. You can simply do it that rather than doing hashtag make the Batfleck movie, hashtag restore the Snyderverse. Selling the Snyderverse to Netflix It's already gained positive engagement from people like Forbes, who have talked about how this is possible and how this makes sense. And you're getting great publicity because you're going out there and doing, as Batdan said, being positive. You're saying in your messages like, hey, yes, I would love to see the Snyderverse hashtag. Boom. It's as simple as that. Put a fun GIF in there if you would like, maybe a cool photo. Just stay positive. Use the 2 hashtags. Don't bring up any of the other old hashtags because Twitter only uses the 2 algorithms. They only calculate for those 2 hashtags are in your tweet. So keep that in mind.
And make sure to check spelling. That's the big important one, is check spelling.
You'd be surprised of the times I still see people spelling Snyder wrong. Like, come on, guys.
I've done it too. So I've misspelled a hashtag. It happens. Just be careful.
Be careful of the ones that auto-populate. Make sure it's the correct one, you know.
The one for Celsius JL without the S, that one's popular. I fell for that one once. And we're not selling Snyderverse to OnlyFans. I've seen that one too. That one is that's an automated populated one. So watch out. I mean,
if OnlyFans wants to put the offer down, though, like I won't say no. I'll create an account.
And now rule number 3 is
there's a third rule.
Yeah, there's a third rule. You didn't know?
What is it?
Okay, fine. Okay, so sure, you actually kind of covered this in rule number 2.
I was going to say, I probably already said it.
Basically, in terms of like not firing or like talking to Netflix, that's the idea, is that the conversation we're having is with Netflix. It's not with Warner Brothers Discovery. It's not with James Gunn. It's not with David Zaslav. Let Netflix worry about making the deals with Warner Brothers Discovery. All we need to do is communicate what we as fans, as paying customers, as paying subscribers want to Netflix. They're the ones who like Zack Snyder. They're the ones who like money. They're the ones who respect their consumers. Even going back on the whole password sharing bullshit that happened, which probably was not an error, but the point is they responded to a customers being upset. So, conversations with Netflix.
Yeah. So, see, I had a feeling. I was like, I may have said it already. But yeah, man, all those rules of engagement, staying positive. Like you said, there's no reason to be mad at James Gunn. Warner Brothers Discovery has already said they're doing their own thing. This is really the final push, the last stand, as some of us have called it. You know, this is Call of Duty. You're down, you have the handgun, you're going to die or you're going to make it through. This is the last stand, right? You need to make it loud, keep it positive, because that's the root of who we are as people and this community. Don't let those trades, all those news outlets to twist our words or to say we're toxic. This group right here that's doing the hashtag sell Snyderverse to Netflix is the same group that raised over $750,000 for AFSP. Okay. Continue the good cause. We're fighting to see the conclusion of a story that we love and to support Zach. If Zach wants to do it, because really that comes down to it too. Netflix will go to Zach on February, probably February 15th after we've had this mega Twitter event. They'll probably go to Zach and say, hey, if we tried this, if we put an offer down to WBD, one, what do you think we would need? What would be your game plan of all the different films you would want to do, series or stuff like that? And would you do it? Would you take it seriously? Would you take Rebel Moon, put it on the back burner for a little bit? Would you take Army of the Dead, put it on the sequels on the back burner for a bit to accomplish this DC film slate or whatever Snyderverse you want to call it? Yeah, I want to do it. Cool. We're going. We'll call them. This is a conversation completely on Netflix right now that they need to start with WBD. God knows WBD ain't going to go around saying, who wants the Snyderverse? They're going to hear the offer, and Netflix has the money that WBD so desperately needs to make some phase 1 worthy, decisions for the DCU. So keep it positive. Use the 2 hashtags, sell Snyderverse to Netflix, sell ZSJL to Netflix. And there's no reason to engage with anybody that is negative. Even if a hater, responds to your comment and says, "Oh, you're wrong. This will never happen." You just
Ignore
respond,
them.
say, "Thank you for sharing my tweet. Hashtag sell Snyderverse to Netflix. Hashtag sell ZSJL to Netflix. Thank you."
And that works too. Just don't be negative. You can ignore, you can respond in a positive way. Just don't. They feed off negativity. That's the reality. We have to get ready for the 214 trending event. Like, this is going to be one of the most important. This is going to be one of the most important 214 trending event days ever, because this is our last shot. This is our last stand, and we're doing a lot of stuff to get ready for this weekend. And hopefully, this will definitely premiere before Saturday, so we can say this weekend. Okay. And Trey, you're doing something to get ready for this. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so Super Bro Corey and I came up with a really cool idea to help get ready for this big Valentine's Day, February 14, 214 Twitter event to get hashtag sells Snyderverse to Netflix, hashtag sells ZSJL to Netflix trending all day long. Corey and I thought another great way to capture Netflix's attention and to really get people hyped and excited for this big event is to do an Army of the Dead watch party, the great film that Zach did for Netflix and Stone Quarry, to do a watch party Saturday night at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. All of our super chats are going to go to AFSP. I do have on our Instagram page as well at @the_bat channel, a little bit of an AFSP fundraiser going on. We're trying to raise $214 for the obvious reason that will go to the Autumn Snyder Tribute Fund, Zach's daughter. And the goal is to, if Army of the Dead just randomly starts trending in the top 10 on Netflix leading up to the event, I think Netflix is going to look at it and say, why? What happened? What's going on? They're going to ask the question, why? And what it's going to do is they're going to look at this hashtag sell ZSJL to Netflix, hashtag sell Snyderverse to Netflix event, and they're going to pay attention. They're going to see how much engagement we get that day. And if we hit some big Twitter numbers, like maybe 1 million plus tweets with those 2 hashtags, then I think Netflix is going to start. I think they're going to start looking at this opportunity, and they're going to start financially calculating, strategizing. How can we make this happen? How can we get this done? How we can make this offer enticing for WBD? So please share the word on Saturday, this Saturday, February 11th at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. Super Bro Corey and I, and maybe a few guests, will be doing a Army of the Dead watch party on Netflix. And even if you can't join us for that watch party, watch Army of the Dead this weekend. Get it trending. Watch it again. Hell, if you want to watch Army of the Thieves and then Army of the Dead, have a whole Army of Thieves Dead weekend, do it. Because if we can make Zach's film trend randomly, then that shows that there's a large community waiting, hungry for some more Snyderverse.
Exactly. And also, you're raising money for AFSP. So that's also really important, because that's an organization that means a lot to Zack Snyder. So I think that's another really great thing you're doing. So check out this streaming event to help get ready for 214 Day, to help build that up, to raise money for AFSP, or I get that abbreviation wrong sometimes, AFSP.
AFSP, yeah. When you say it real fast, it's AFSP. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, they're gonna get ready for that event, for that charity too. So it's gonna be a great event. Check it out. And I'm gonna do some more stuff on my channel to kind of hype up for this 214 Day as well. Maybe I might have some short form content come out between this recording and this premiere. So we'll see. Can't predict the future all the time, but point is, check that out. And hopefully, I actually have not done an interview with Mikey Sutton yet on Dreamwalker, but I'm going to be starting a new show soon called Bat Dan's Interviews, where I'm going to try to bring people on for more of a, this is like more of a discussion format. I'm going to bring people on for more of an interview format. So
very cool.
Check that out. I haven't talked to anyone yet, but I may try to get something before 214. We'll see. It depends on scheduling. Who knows? But check that out. We have a lot of great stuff happening. We have to work together. I'm going to say that, make a point. Fuck any grievances we had in the past. It does not matter. This is a new movement going forward. We can make this happen. I believe we can. Don't you believe we can, Trey?
Absolutely. Yeah, without question. No doubt.
And we'll be back. We will both be back. Same bat time.
Same Bat Dan's Discussions channel.
And lastly, have a bat-tastic day.
What he